In 1780, a bold proclamation echoed through the small town of Sheffield, Massachusetts. All men are born free and equal. The words, pulled straight from the state's newly ratified constitution, were meant to inspire revolutionary spirit. As the American colonies battled British oppression, such statements lit the fires of hope in the hearts of many. But for one woman, known at the time simply as Bet, the proclamation wasn't just inspiring, it was infuriating. Bet was enslaved, and she immediately grasped the contradiction in declaring liberty while denying it to people like her. Refusing to remain silent, she made a courageous decision that would not only change her own fate, but alter the course of American history. This is the story of Elizabeth Freeman, the enslaved midwife who sued for her freedom and won decades before the infamous Dred Scott case would try and fail to do the same. From enslavement to legal warrior, born around 1744, Elizabeth Freeman spent nearly 30 years enslaved in the household of Judge John Ashley, a prominent figure in western Massachusetts. Like many elites of the time, Ashley was a staunch advocate for colonial independence, regularly hosting gatherings where revolutionaries debated British tyranny. Ironically, even as he championed liberty, he kept human beings in bondage, including Bet. Freeman's pivotal moment came when she heard the Massachusetts Constitution read aloud in Sheffield's town square. Its powerful declaration of universal freedom struck her deeply. She reportedly said, "I heard that paper read that says all men are born equal and every man has a right to freedom. I am not a dumb critter. Won't the law give me my freedom?" Rather than letting those words vanish in the wind, Freeman took action. She walked straight to the home of Theodore Sedgwick, a well-known local lawyer and future U.S. Senator. With bold conviction, she asked Sedgwick to help her sue for her freedom, using the very Constitution that promised equality as her legal weapon. To many, the idea of an enslaved black woman challenging the legal foundation of slavery in court might have seemed outrageous, but Sedgwick, intrigued by the legal implications and likely moved by Freeman's determination, agreed to take her case. The climate in Massachusetts. Massachusetts had a complicated history with slavery. It was the first colony to legalize it, and many of its residents were deeply involved in the Atlantic slave trade. Yet, by the time Freeman filed her case in 1781, the winds were shifting. State laws were unique in that they allowed enslaved individuals to sue their enslavers in certain circumstances. If they could argue, for example, that promises of freedom had been broken, or the conditions of sale were illegal, nearly 30 such cases had already made their way through the courts. But Freeman's approach was different. Rather than relying on technicalities, she directly challenged the legitimacy of slavery itself. She argued that the very existence of slavery contradicted the Massachusetts Constitution. In doing so, she took aim at the system as a whole, not just her own personal condition. Some historians suggest Freeman wasn't acting entirely alone, because she was a respected figure in the local community, a midwife and nurse known among both black and white families. It's believed that she may have been selected strategically as the ideal test case. Her reputation for honesty, bravery, and intelligence made her a sympathetic figure before any jury. A scarred hero. Freeman's courage wasn't limited to the courtroom. In one of the most dramatic moments of her life, she protected a young girl named Lizzie, possibly her daughter or younger sister, from a brutal assault. According to historical accounts, Mrs. Ashley, the judge's wife, flew into a rage and grabbed a red-hot shovel from the hearth, intending to strike Lizzie. Freeman stepped between them and took the blow herself. The searing metal cut to the bone, leaving her with a permanent scar that she bore for the rest of her life. Yet from that moment on, Mrs. Ashley never dared lay hands on Lizzie again. That act of bravery not only reveals Freeman's character, but underscores her long-standing resistance to injustice, even before she took her fight to court. The legal showdown that changed the state. Freeman's trial, often referred to as one of the most important legal battles of the era, took place in 1781. She was joined in her suit by another enslaved individual, a man named Brom. Together, they stood before a jury composed entirely of white male farmers, a group not likely to side with enslaved plaintiffs unless the argument was unshakably strong, and it was. Sedgwick and his co-counsel Tapping Reeve, who would later found America's first law school, argued that Freeman's enslavement was incompatible with the Massachusetts Constitution. Her lawyers didn't rely on pity. They made a powerful case rooted in logic, legality, and the founding ideals of the very state whose courts they stood in. Astonishingly, the jury ruled in Freeman's favor. She was granted her freedom and awarded a sum of 30 shillings in damages. Immediately, she shed her slave name Bet and began calling herself Elizabeth Freeman, a name that symbolized both her legal victory and her identity as a free woman, a ripple that became a wave. Freeman's case didn't happen in a vacuum. At roughly the same time, another enslaved man named Quock Walker was engaged in a legal struggle for freedom. Walker argued that he had been promised emancipation and sued for damages after being violently beaten for attempting to claim it. He too would win his case, and the combined outcomes of both legal battles sent shockwaves through Massachusetts. By 1790, the U.S. Census recorded no enslaved people in the state. Massachusetts had effectively abolished slavery, the first state to do so. Freeman's case in particular stands as a legal landmark. She hadn't merely argued her individual right to be free, she had successfully contested the very legitimacy of slavery using the foundational text of American liberty, life after liberation. After gaining her freedom, Freeman chose to stay in the employment of the Sedgwick family, not out of necessity, but by choice. She became a trusted and beloved member of the household and helped raise Sedgwick's children, including Catherine Sedgwick, who would later become a prominent novelist and write extensively about Freeman's life. Freeman eventually saved enough money to buy her own home and land, an extraordinary achievement for a black woman in the 18th century. When she passed away in 1829, she was nearly 85 years old. Her funeral was reportedly attended by hundreds, a testament to the impact she had on her community. Her grave still stands today in the Sedgwick family plot, an honor almost unheard of at the time for someone born into slavery. The inscription on her tombstone reads, "She was born a slave and remained a slave for nearly 30 years. She could neither read nor write, yet in her own sphere she had no superior nor equal." A legacy of quiet revolution. Elizabeth Freeman's story is often overshadowed by larger-than-life figures and flashier moments in American history, but her legacy is profound. She didn't just break her own chains, she exposed the hypocrisy at the heart of a nation claiming to be founded on liberty while perpetuating slavery. She used the system that oppressed her to defeat it, wielding the very words of the revolutionaries against them. Her courage laid groundwork for future abolitionist movements and inspired generations of activists who would come after her. In many ways, Freeman was a precursor to figures like Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, and Rosa Parks, women who turned personal defiance into historic change. Remembering Freeman today. In recent years, Elizabeth Freeman's contributions have begun to receive the recognition they deserve. Statues have been proposed, and her name is taught in more classrooms as a foundational figure in American legal history. But perhaps her greatest monument is the enduring principle she helped prove, that freedom is not just an idea reserved for some, it is a right owed to all. Freeman once said, "Anytime while I was a slave, if 1 minute's freedom had been offered to me, and I had been told I must die at the end of that minute, I would have taken it. Just to stand 1 minute on God's earth a free woman, I would." And with that 1 minute, she changed America forever. Thanks for watching, history buffs. If Elizabeth Freeman's story inspired you as much as it inspired us, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. We've got more untold stories, unsung heroes, and revolutionary moments coming your way every week. Because history isn't just what happened, it's how we got here. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious